Okay, so this is
fats.
fats.
So fats are another part of the establishing the basics and the fundamentals of a healthy diet. So understanding the sort of structure and the classes of the fats is important. Now, a bit like in terms of the carbohydrates, we're not going to delve into the nitty-gritty in the biochemistry. We'll just touch on that, and you can read in more detail in the supporting literature that we'll provide as part of the backup to these short presentations. So essentially, a fat will be classed as a saturated, polyunsaturated, or monounsaturated fat, and that really it is just talking about the length of the fat and how saturated it is with hydrogen ions. So saturates tend to be long and fairly well saturated with hydrogen ions, and they tend to occur in a straight line. And this is important to understand because the fats will get integrated into the cell membrane, and the way the cells communicate with each other and allow nutrients and things like that in and out of the cells will depend a little bit on how that cell membrane is made up. So if you imagine lots of saturated fats side by side, the membrane can be quite, rigid and not very fluid. It's harder for nutrients to get in and out of the out of that cell. However, the saturates will, because they are rigid, provide good structure to the cell. On the flip side, you've got your polyunsaturated fats, which have a double bond at either the third or the sixth junction. So they're sort of like kinky. So when they fit together, there's bigger gaps, and there's more membrane fluidity, which tends to be a good thing. Now, so the fats will form an essential part of the cell membrane structure, but also we will derive chemical messengers called prostaglandins from the fats that we eat, and the prostaglandins will influence the inflammatory processes in the body. So the type of fats we eat, if they're in the wrong ratio, will either normalize inflammation or maybe make inflammation a little bit worse. And inflammation is a phrase for how the immune system travels around the body. So if you get stung by a bee, then the swelling there is a manifestation of inflammation as the immune system rushes to the site and begins to tackle the poisons and so on. If you break an arm or cut yourself, similar processes occur where the repairing, the renewal process will be immune driven. But there's other immune and inflammation processes in the body, and inflammatory conditions can also include things like asthma, eczema, hay fever, psoriasis, many of the degenerative conditions in the body like arthritis, heart disease, cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, are all have inflammatory driven processes which can speed the onset and of those conditions. So moderating inflammation in the body is an essential part of staying healthy, and we can moderate the inflammation in the body by correcting the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fats. Currently, we consume way too many omega-6 fats, and they tend to come in the form of vegetable oil and derived products that are made from vegetable oil and or margarines. So if you can imagine anything fried, if you drive around the back of a takeaway, you'll see those huge drums of vegetable oil. So they'll be using a lot of those types of fats in those takeaway type dinners, and then chips, stuff that's covered in breadcrumbs, anything deep fried, cakes, biscuits, confectionery, more or less everything that's commercially baked, croissants, all that will be very high in omega-6. And the current ratio is estimated to be around 20 to 1, omega-6 to 3 in this country. And the ratio deemed healthy is somewhere probably 3 to 1. People argue, is it 1 to 1, 2 to 1? But somewhere around 3 to 1, which is quite hard to achieve in the diet. You have to eat lots of oily fish, avoid all sources of omega-6 for a while in order to optimize this ratio. And then in addition to your omega, and the omega-3 and omega-6 fats are classed under polyunsaturates. But of course, polyunsaturates are given this label, they're all healthy, and they are both essential, but the ratio is important for health. So it's not just all polyunsaturates are good for you. And then you've got things like your monounsaturates, things like olive oil, many nuts will be high in monounsaturates, like cashew nuts and so on. Now, never is there a truer word said where we need to avoid manufactured fats, as with the type of manufactured fats that sneak into processed foods. And those fats are classed as, you've probably heard of them, trans or hydrogenated fats. So they've been fats which have been tinkered with to make them spreadable at room temperature, as in the case of margarines, or they've been added into foods because they have got a fantastically long shelf life. 2, 3, 4 years down the line, they'll be completely intact, and as such are very difficult for the body to break down and can get integrated into cells in the wrong way and are associated with a load of negative health implications. How long was that?
6.5.